I have sanded and spray painted white a 20-ounce handy slurp tumbler from the Stainless Depot Company. And because I'm applying a tattoo, just like a water slide, I want to make sure I'm starting with a smooth surface. So I'm using UV resin, and I'm going to cure that resin for to begin the base for my tattoo. I have applied a tattoo over just a spray painted white surface, but with that one I used alcohol inks, and I like the look of the alcohol inks on just a spray painted surface. Today I'm using glitters. And so I wasn't really sure. I haven't done glitters with a tattoo before, so I wanted to make sure that I had a really smooth surface in case I messed up. So I just was eyeballing the sizing for my tattoo. Once you peel off that plastic covering of your tattoo, you can't touch the inked area because it will come off on your hand and it'll mess up the image. So just like a water slide, you want to start with a wet surface and then lay your tattoo down. Once that tattoo hits the cup, you can't pick it back up like you can a water slide. It's stuck. If you try to lift it up, it's going to ruin the image. So you lay it down. You want to make sure you get it as smooth as possible. I'm just cutting off the excess. And then over the top of that tattoo, the paper backing surface, you want to make sure you get it damp. So I'm going to use my fingers and some paper towels or a cotton ball to get that entire surface wet. And then once you have it wet and you think that it's smooth enough to start peeling up that paper, very slowly peek underneath it and then start lifting up that paper, making sure that you don't accidentally peel up the tattoo with it as you lift. Once you peel off that paper backing, you want to make sure that you smooth out any bubbles or wrinkles you might have. And you can see I have a couple tears. I was pretty aggressive with my paper when I was rubbing it with the water, and it moved around underneath my hand. And so this one, has some damage to it, but it's okay because what I'm going to do with this tumbler is I'm going to use a lot of glitters and some waxes, and you're not going to see a lot of the tattoo anyway. However, if I meant for that tattoo to be bold and be flawless, then I would have to redo it, or you could repair it with some alcohol inks or some acrylic markers. So with this piece of clock, I actually cut it off the bottom of the other side, and I decided that's a really important piece of the visual that I wanted for this tumbler. And so I was a little upset with myself for cutting it off. So I pieced it back to the top of the tumbler and lined up the rest of the tattoo, the bottom portion of the tattoo, directly underneath that clock. When I peeled it off, it matched up pretty perfectly, but you could see some separation because the clock numbers and the clock hand are black. Then the separation between the two pieces of tattoo really stand out. So I used an acrylic marker just to barely touch up, just right over the top of it, and it blended in perfectly. So if you make a mistake like that, you can just take an acrylic marker, an alcohol ink pen or something and just fix it up. So now I am applying a layer of epoxy, and this is what I'm going to use to apply my glitters. So I am using a bunch of glitters because what I want to do is match the colors on the tattoo and then kind of apply the glitters where those colors are and have the glitters spread out over the image. And then over the top of the image, on the top of the, the fine colored glitters I'm going to use, I'm going to also add some chunky glitters. So there are a lot. I think I used like 12 glitters. I'll list them all below. And so I'm just blending in the white areas. You're not going to see any white except for the white that's in the clock. Everything else is going to be covered up. And I know this is a really pretty tattoo image, and some of you might be going, oh my gosh, why are you doing that? That's okay. I have another tattoo like this one that I can put on another cup and not cover it all up. But I wanted to really play with the glitters with a tattoo just to see, how it would turn out. So that's what I'm doing. So a lot of this image you're not going to see in the end. So I'm just repeating and alternating between the light and the dark glitters around the tumbler, and I want there to be some really definite contrasting sections between the lights and the darks, because in the end, a lot of it's going to be covered up with the foils and the waxes that I'm going to apply, and I need those colors to be able to peek through the areas where there's wax and foil. So after I am happy with the appearance, I put it on the turner and apply one more coat of epoxy. And now I am ready to start applying my waxes and my foil. This is a holographic foil. It has like it shifts between blues and greens. It's super pretty. And so I am beginning with Tack-It all around the tumbler and using a chip brush to place the glue, the Tack-It, where I want the foil to stick. And I want it to look like weathered or rustic or just kind of used. And so I'm placing the glue kind of carelessly, but with purpose around the tumbler, and I'm going to apply that foil. And then after I apply the foil, I'm going to go through with the really pretty pinks and blue waxes and sporadically place those around to make everything blend. You don't have to use a heat gun to dry your Tack-It. Actually, if you get your heat gun too close to the Tack-It, it makes it bubble, and then you can't even use it the way you intended because it's the adhesive kind of pulls off a little bit. So if you just want to let this sit and air dry and go grab a cup of coffee or a snack or whatever and come back, your Tack-It will be ready to go, and the adhesive will be the perfect stickiness for your foil or glitter or whatever you're using to stick to. So I'm just applying the foil all around the tumbler, and then make sure I'm rubbing it really good in those sections. And so just to make sure I don't miss any sections, I put the foil all over. I just take the sheet and just wrap it around the tumbler, and that sheet will automatically pick up the stickiness, and it makes it a lot easier to apply rather than trying to find those little tacky areas that you just applied the Tack-It to. Okay, now this is the part that I took the most time really paying attention to, where I'm placing those colors. This is what's really going to make the tumbler pop in the very end and give it that dimension. This stuff is so fun to work with. It's a pigmented wax. I got it from Amazon. I had no idea what I was buying when I purchased it. I just thought, let's play with something different. And when I first started using this last year, I would apply it to my tumbler and then it would just come right off. And I'm like, well, that's weird. How do I get this to really make a difference on my tumbler? So then I played with it some more. And if you apply it and just let it sit without rubbing it in, it's thick. It's like lipstick. It feels like you're applying lipstick to your tumbler. That's exactly the consistency that I can compare it to. So you know how, like, if you've ever used lipstick, you know how sometimes if you're putting lipstick on, it'll kind of crumble and break a little bit. And then if you like smear it, there's portions of the lipstick that are chunky and the other ones are really smooth. That's exactly how this applies. So when you have those little chunky pieces and it sticks up and then you let it dry and you apply your epoxy over the top of it, it looks really, really neat underneath the epoxy because you can really see the depth of all those different, like the glitters and the foils and the waxes stacked on top of each other. And so that's what makes it look really cool. So I took my time with this, placing it, really thinking about where I'm placing it, starting slow and then building up over the top of it. And so I'm applying the pinks and the red. This is actually it's like a wine color. And then if you use your finger, you can pull it and spread it out, and you can actually erase portions that you don't like and just kind of, I'm going to use the word smear, just smear it around your tumbler wherever you want it to look weathered or worn. And it's really fun to play with. So if you've never used these, go try it. But before you apply your epoxy, you want to make sure you just let it sit, and those waxes will harden over time. So let it sit before you apply your epoxy over the top. Once I was happy with the placement of the colors, then I just let it sit for, I think I let it sit for 2 hours. And then I applied my last layer of epoxy. I was going to put a decal on this, I was thinking, but after I pulled it off the tumbler turner and looked at it, it was just too pretty. I don't know, maybe I'll still apply a decal later, but I just didn't want to do that at this point in time. This tumbler came with a dome lid, and I really wanted to try blinging it. So that's not something that I'm kind of afraid to play with my rhinestones because it's so tedious and I know it's going to be very time consuming, and I'm also afraid to mess up. But I wanted to really give it an attempt. So what I did is I spray painted the dome lid, And then I applied UV resin with some black additive inside the resin to the dome lid. So if I really do a terrible job on my bling, then when you look through the rhinestones, you'll still see some glittered epoxy black color coming through. So it's not gonna look terrible. In the beginning, around the lip of the dome, and then up to probably about the first third of or maybe the half of the curved dome lid, I started placing my stones in the honeycomb. I guess it's called the honeycomb method. And then after that, the top portion of the dome, I started scattering them. Or sprinkle and scatter. I think those are the same thing. So I don't know if on the top half of the dome lid, I started to get really tired. And so I just started randomly placing stones, or if it just wasn't coming together. But some of my lines did turn out to be a little bit crooked, but overall it looks pretty good for my first attempt. So I'm pretty happy with it. I'll definitely play with it some more, but I need to give myself a lot of time. Here it is all put together in the morning sunshine. If you have any tips for rhinestoning, please leave those below. I would sure love to hear what you have to say. They could help me out. And if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, and thank you so much for watching.